How does one gain some degree of impact, notoriety, recognition, if one's starting from zero, basically, just out of the gate, and secondly, has no degrees in the area, no Ph.D., no M.D. degree, no formal, quote, training, no brick and mortar training, that is. How does one maximize one's efforts and shorten to the minimum time to get more and more recognition? Well, it strikes me, based on my past experience, that a first step is to build a proper foundation, kind of like a biblical injunction from Christianity stating, don't build your house upon the sand. Well, what would the sand be then? It would be an unfirm foundation, I believe, built upon not having resolved in one's own life pain points from childhood particularly, and this particularly often toward a parent, anger, unresolved, that gets displaced upon others, in terms of what you might call disrespect, or wanting also to see others hurt in general. This plays out in a lot of very subtle ways, often in terms of poor word choice or not refining one's words one uses in general, or through nonverbal communications of the body and intonation of the voice. Of course, this sounds so simplistic. Be respectful, be loving, don't want to hurt others, don't be insulting. But that's easier said than done for many a person, I believe. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so much material out on the value of forgiveness and how difficult that is, and everybody's opinion on how to do it or accomplish it, moreover. Now, I suppose one can, by many a means, get ahead quite a bit in certain respects in life, for years, decades even, but then I believe inevitably come to collapse and an awakening of some sort, that things were built upon an unfirm foundation you might call sand. And then you see this playing out in a lot of talk show hosts whose careers fizzle out, or we find their staffs did not like them much at all. We find it in famous comedians we so loved, discovering later that they had addictions to illegal drugs their whole lives, or shall we say very brain-injuring drugs. We find it also in divorces, all too often, that are especially the acrimonious, bitter divorces with contested custody cases and more. We find it also then in other areas too, where things just, quote, blow up in a person's face as time goes on. We see it in the impact too upon one's children. Case in point, Michael Landon and the impact upon his children. And same sometimes, you might say, for famous comedians like Bing Crosby, one of his children wrote a not so flattering biography upon him also. Secondly, I would say that the more respect one has for others, as opposed to the opposite, wanting to see others hurt and have a hand in it, the more this is going to be obvious and get you ahead to maximal speed. Another factor, humility. Knowing everything is a series of causes and effects, and that we can't pull rabbits out of hats with magical acts or magical thinking. And in general, use of terminology and or nonverbal communications to put others down doesn't fly in the long run. Neither does talking behind someone's back. And by that I mean in the malicious put-downing sense. Also, I've seen over and over play out in my life and talked of a lot on videos and more, the less anxious one is, the less fearful, the less hypervigilant, the better this is going to go for a person in general. Whether a content creator, someone dating, looking for friendships in general, what have you. No one likes being around a fearful person, a moreover hypervigilant person. Then there's the issue of smiling. Smiling conveys a number of things about a person if done not manipulatively. In my mind, it demonstrates two key things: low levels of anger, and secondly, it demonstrates fearlessness. For the hypervigilant person, always on edge, in my opinion, can never smile, unless it's a very forced smile, and we call this a grimace, or a fake smile, or even a plastic smile, or painted on smile. So if one has mastered a lot of this, one will find oneself gravitating, I believe, more and more to in-person communications and delivery of content to include video. I note, by the way, also humor, very important. You can't very well be humorous if you're angry. They just don't mix. Noting then, there are some people who say they really have problems getting on camera. I believe that's likely because there's things they wish to hide about their character, and it would show on camera, and they then declare, I would rather write, or I have a radio voice. I'll end with one last thing. The person who wishes to distinguish themselves and in the shortest period of time would also probably do well to, and this comes also echoing from a book I read on credibility online, it would do them well to be very prolific. Why? First, it's the opposite of the quote-unquote couch potato or the imbibing with alcohol person, or the person who sleeps all the time to escape problems, or works too much, or is a relationship-holic or sexaholic. All of these people are not going to get much work done. But moreover, the person afflicted with fears galore, catastrophizings galore, anger galore, and guilt galore will not be able, in my opinion, to do much at all in terms of productivity. They may well be a great backseat driver criticizing others' productive creations, but their own creations will be nil. At best, they will be pencil sharpener specialists or color coding specialists or great at filing things and dusting, but not creating prolifically, because that takes not just a lot of effort and hard work, but efficiency. And all of those emotions, all of those drives in general, kill efficiency, maybe down to a 2% level, in my opinion. Now, there are examples, of course, of being highly prolific, highly driven, when one is under two compelling reasons sometimes: intense fear for survival, and secondly, intense rage. You might say in some respects Hitler was very productive, but then you have to examine, of course, the fact that he was a very enraged person. And I don't believe that's very common for a person to be highly enraged or highly fearful and to be very, very productive for long periods of time, nor is it just statistically likely in general. I might add the person who is highly envious probably will not be a very productive person either, because a key component of envy is anger or rage, which again stymies a person, or accompanyingly, if that person feels they can't keep up with the Joneses and surpass them, maybe this is more a matter of what they call narcissism, then the person probably too is going to fold and look for something they can perform much more above the average of the typical Joneses in their mind. These are ideas I have as to how to pull ahead in the maximal efficient way. How to get from zero to fastest, most productive, most desired end. When one doesn't have typical credentials, especially, or, quote, great good looks, or lots of ad money, and so on.